Hello, and welcome to this lesson in the Writer's Guide to Freewrite. You've learned how to freewrite, and you've gotten to know your freewrite device pretty well. Now, let's put it all together into a workflow that fits your unique creative process. During this class, we'll learn from Briana Morgan, editor and award-winning horror writer, about how she turns a messy first draft into a polished manuscript with a thorough 12-step process. I'll be reading Briana's essay from the guide called Moving from Messy First Draft to Polished Manuscript. Writing is hard. Publishing is even harder. According to the Lost World author Michael Crichton, good books aren't written, they're rewritten. To produce a polished piece worthy of publication, you'll need to take your messy first draft, revise, and refine it. This process can intimidate, but I promise it's not as frightening as it looks. Here's my process for moving from messy first draft to a polished manuscript. I published my first novel in 2015. Since then, I've written 8 books and more than a dozen short stories. Now, I work as a freelance editor for fellow writers. In terms of writing and revising, I've tried almost everything. I've been through the ringer, and I've discovered a personal polishing process that works best for me. It may take some time for you to find your own, but in the meantime, you can start here. Hopefully this insight into my process helps you discover your own. Number 1, let it breathe. Once you've finished your first draft, it's tempting to dive right back in and get to work. However, I advise against this, especially with a novel. You've spent countless hours on this project. Day in, day out, you've dived into the nitty-gritty of the work, learning it inside and out. You're more familiar with the settings, the characters, the plot, twists, everything, which means your brain may fill in the gaps or automatically translate complex information that might trip up other readers. To edit your work most effectively, you need to gain some distance. Take a break, step away from the writing, and return with fresh or fresher eyes. For me, I like to wait at least 2 weeks before diving in. Stephen King actually recommends taking a month off. Number 2, read it. Once you've had some time away from your piece, it's time to experience it as a reader. Settle in somewhere comfortable and read it from start to finish. At this stage, it's tempting to edit, but resist the temptation. A great way to avoid this tendency is to read the writing somewhere other than your word processor. I like to upload the document to my Kindle so I can't edit it, but a lot of authors recommend printing out a hard copy. It's all down to your preference. It's important to remember that as you read your piece, don't stop to edit. You want to emulate a first-time reader's experience as much as possible. Number 3, make notes. After reading your writing once from a reader's perspective, you'll read it again, only this time you're allowed to highlight, take notes, and flag things to your heart's content. If you have a hard copy, you can highlight or use a red pen. And when I read on my Kindle, I also highlight troublesome passages or add notes. It might be easier to keep a list of things to edit in a separate notebook or Word document. Use whatever method works for you better, but remember, at this stage, the most important thing is noting what needs to change, not organizing the edits. Which brings me to my next point. Number 4, get organized. Now, take your list of editing notes and organize them by category. For example, my edits usually fall into one of 3 categories: structural or developmental, line edits, or copy edits. That's because I'm an editor. It may be more helpful for you to break them down according to categories like plot, character, voice, setting, etc. Again, whatever will be the most useful for you and your specific needs. Number 5, take the list one category at a time. Your first instinct may be to start from the very beginning of the piece and work through the edits chronologically. Resist this urge. Instead, divide the list into categories of scale and take on each category one by one. If you go chronologically, rather than by size of the issues, you may revise or edit things you'll later delete altogether, wasting time along the way. Instead, go from the biggest, structural issues, and work your way down to smaller issues like word choice and grammar. You can thank me later. Number 6, do the structural edit. Your first pass should address developmental issues in the piece. For fiction, this includes key components like plot, character arcs, settings, description. Typically, you'll want to be on the lookout for plot holes or character inconsistencies or believability and items of that nature. While this step in the process is often the most time-consuming, it's also the most rewarding to complete and makes the biggest impact on your story. So definitely take your time here. Number 7, complete the line edit. After the developmental edit comes the line edit. A line edit concerns itself with word choice, flow, style, and paragraph and sentence structure. At this stage, you may also tweak point of view, voice, and style. Number 8, do the copy edit. Once you've hammered out the major points of the piece, it's time to get down to each word. Of course, you're going to want to double check the spelling and grammar here, but copy editing also involves fact-checking any points of contention or jarring word choices. Knock out as many cliches and figures of speech as possible here and note any sticky sentences or turn off phrases. If they stand out to you, they'll stand out to your readers. You want to make sure your writing is as effortless to read and experience as possible. Number 9, complete the final read through and proofread. After you've fixed all the glaring issues with your writing, read through it at least 2 more times for typos, misspellings, or any major hang-ups that make your work look unprofessional. While most publications offer editors to double-check the work for you, you'll make their lives a lot easier if you get the piece as clean as possible on your own before they even see it. Number 10, seek outside feedback. This step is entirely up to you, but once you've gotten your writing in tip-top shape, seek outside feedback. For many authors, this means reaching out to trusted critique partners or beta readers. Some writers with long-established critique partners who they trust and who are familiar with may even solicit that earlier in the editing process. If the idea of sharing your story with anyone before publication intimidates you, it's entirely optional. I encourage you to consider it though. Again, other readers may notice and flag issues that could prevent your piece from getting published. Should you choose to elicit outside feedback, you can then use that to further edit and revise the piece. Number 11, rinse and repeat. At each stage of revising, ask yourself, am I making this piece better or just different? If it's the former, you're good to keep revising. If it's the latter, stop revising. It's ready. Any further editing on your part is likely procrastination. It's hard to stop, but you're ready. It's time to share your work. And number 12, publish. Publishing is often the most stressful step in the process. Regardless of if you've already sought outside feedback, you're now opting to share your writing with the world. However you're choosing to publish, this is the best, most terrifying part. Good luck. Thank you, Briana, for your contribution to this guide, and thank you for joining us on this lesson. Right on.